Good evening, and welcome to another exciting episode of Movie NP, Halloween Edition, the vlog where we review movies and analyze them for success and self help tips. Tonight's review and analysis is one of the hottest films going right now, The Substance 2024. It's written and directed by Coralie Fergeet, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, forget about it. It stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid. So here's the setup. The basic premise is a modern day Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. Demi Moore stars as Elizabeth Sparkle, an aging superstar who knows all too well what the future holds. She longs for the days when she was young, beautiful, and famous. Enter the opportunity to obtain a black market drug that promises to make her younger, beautiful, and a better version of herself. The catch? You have to spend the rest of your life switching back and forth every 7 days. But no sweat, right? I mean, what can go wrong by injecting a black market drug that's left for you to pick up in a storage unit on the slummy side of town? Nothing, right? The film is 2 hours and 21 minutes too long, in my opinion, rated R, and carries an IMDb rating of 7.6 out of 10. Currently, the film is only available in theaters, so check fandango.com for theater listings and times. It's also available for pre purchase through Amazon Prime. The genres include horror, body horror, psychological horror, drama, but most of all, satire. So before I get into the plot specifics, spoiler alert. So the film starts with an egg being injected with some sort of substance, and almost immediately the egg replicates itself. We then cut to an aerial shot of Elizabeth Sparkley's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We see a time lapse reel that begins with the creation of the star, the big dedication night with Elizabeth present and all the glitz and glamour, followed by a slow but steady decline of the star's popularity up to the present day cracked, faded, and dusty, forgotten version of the self. We then cut to Elizabeth filming her Jane Fonda-esque workout morning show broadcast. The director calls cut, and Elizabeth heads to the bathroom. While in the stall, her sleazy Hollywood producer, played wonderfully by Dennis Quaid, comes into the bathroom. Not knowing or perhaps caring that she's in the stall, he takes a phone call mouthing off plenty of degrading comments about females, their bodies, and how he desires to find a hotter, younger girl to replace Elizabeth. She leaves the studio visibly upset, and while distracted by looking at the 40-foot high billboard of herself, she ends up in a severe motor vehicle accident. This results in her going to the ER to be medically cleared. While sitting on a gurney with the hospital gown on and facing away from the camera, the doctor and a very sexy male nurse walk into the room. The doc tells her, other than feeling bruised and sore, she's fine and she can leave. She then breaks down in tears. Rather than helping her, the doctor quickly excuses himself due to an emergency call, quote unquote, and exits stage left. The nurse tells her that he has one last assessment to do. She begins to question this because Doc said she was medically cleared, but the nurse continues anyway, places a stethoscope on her back, and listens. He replies that she's an excellent candidate and hands her a handwritten note and a jump drive. Elizabeth later reads the note that states, "It changed my life." She pops the jump drive in and watches the contents. What it holds is a short infomercial for the substance that gives a brief overview of how the product will restore your youth and beauty and create a better version of yourself. But the catch is having to swap with each other every 7 days. The infomercial was very specific in stating that although there might be two versions of you, there is only one you. Initially, Elizabeth throws it in the trash and goes about her business, but as she looks at the billboard and takes a critical view of herself in the mirror, she decides to call the number. The representative who answers is very curt and to the point without any sort of unnecessary pleasantries, nor does he give the company's name or his name, but he goes on to describe the substance in a little bit more detail and is specific to point out that the 7 days must be respected, no exceptions. Elizabeth consents to the drug and he tells her it will be delivered. She's then given information to pick the package up from a storage locker that is clearly located in the bad side of town. She goes home and opens the package. She finds a confusing array of medical supplies, syringes, tubing, and a vial labeled activator. One of these devices of interest is what looks like a 1,000 millimeter syringe that is graduated into 7 different compartments. The activator valve is clearly marked for one time use only. She draws up the substance into a syringe and injects it. At first, nothing seems to happen, but moments later, it results in a violent reaction that leads to Elizabeth passing out on her bathroom floor. And then we get to see the outcome of the substance. It's very reminiscent of a David Cronenberg film. Moments later, Elizabeth's spinal column splits open, and in no uncertain terms, she births a young, sexy, fully grown adult female out of her back. The old Elizabeth remains in a coma-like state while the new Elizabeth becomes conscious. The new Elizabeth responds to the ad seeking to replace her and auditions for the part. During the audition, she introduces herself as Sue. Sue, of course, gets the part and begins to enjoy her new life until her nose starts to bleed and she appears to be experiencing a severe episode of vertigo. We then learn what the 1,000 milliliters graduated syringe is for. For Sue to remain alive and stable, she needs to use this syringe and needle. She jams it into Elizabeth's lumbar region and her back and withdraws 7 days' worth of its white pearlescent stabilizing fluid. Sue must then take one of the segmented compartments and inject it into herself. At the end of the 7 days, no more stabilizing fluid is left in the syringe, and she must switch places with the old Elizabeth. At this point, Sue falls into a coma-like state, and the old Elizabeth becomes conscious. At the next switch, however, we begin to realize that the representative's claims of them being one person is false. It's either an exaggeration, an outright lie, or they are clueless as to how their product actually works. Both Elizabeth and Sue are distinct but connected beings, however, each with their own memories and motivations. As Sue's fame quickly turns into a base-pumping, hedonistic lifestyle, she begins to dominate. She disregards the rules of the drug, staying in control longer than allowed. This leads to Elizabeth's body aging rapidly and deteriorating further. Elizabeth's decaying condition worsens as Sue becomes more reckless. Eventually, Elizabeth, driven by desperation, attempts to end Sue with a termination fluid, but their separation leads to a violent showdown. When Sue wakes, she sees the termination syringe and becomes enraged and violently attacks Elizabeth, beating Elizabeth's head off the bathroom sink until she collapses into a bloody mess. Sue then leaves and heads to the studio to prepare for her big televised New Year's Eve show. But just before going on stage, Sue's body begins to rapidly deteriorate and her teeth fall out. In a final desperate act, Sue runs back to her apartment and tries to use the substance again. You know, the one that was labeled for single use only. But instead of rejuvenation, she bursts in abomination. The resulting monster looks like something directly out of a John Carpenter's The Thing. But as hideous as it is, she makes her way back to the studio and onto the stage. When the spotlight turns on, the audience becomes horrified and enraged. They attack the monster, resulting in a scene that I can only describe as a combination of John Carpenter's Thing and the final scenes of Carrie. It becomes a bloodbath. After what seems like 2 55-gallon drums of blood is squirted everywhere and showers the audience with a bloodbath, the monster flees for its life and ends up back on the street, running away from the studio. As doing so, her body rapidly decays, and all that remains is her face. Her face then continues to crawl across the ground before collapsing in the center of her own Hollywood star and dying. Moments later, a street sweeper comes on by and unceremoniously sucks the remains up. Roll credits, finissimo, the end. So while you recover from the shock, let's get into the success tips we can gain from this film. But before we get started, I have to give you my usual disclaimer. What I'm about to discuss is for general purposes only. It's not intended to diagnose or treat anyone's conditions. Speak to your healthcare provider. Only you and your healthcare provider can determine the best course of action for you. The Substance is a horror thriller that offers a satirical take on beauty, aging, and the entertainment industry's obsession with youth and the public's desire to always want something new. The success tips that we can take away from the film are five. Be careful what you wish for. Elizabeth Sparkle becomes addicted to fame and glamour and uses a black market quick fix that promises youth and beauty only to face dire consequences. This reflects the danger of chasing quick fixes without understanding the long term effects. The takeaway here is pursuing short term gains without considering consequences can backfire. And taking steps to reach your goals, you need to focus on the long term game. There are multiple ways you can apply this tip, but let's focus on investing. And let's take for a moment Warren Buffett, for example. He doesn't look for the hottest new stock or the investment to make a quick buck. He puts his money in the market in a buy and hold strategy and just lets it sit there. Think about this. The average return of the S&P 500 is approximately 10% a year or 7% a year adjusted for inflation. That means buying a fund that follows the S&P 500 will damn near guarantee a 10% return just by buying and holding. And consider the compound interest year after year. I recall some time ago hearing that after a 10-year period, the return is something more like 25%. My point is work smarter, not harder, and resist quick fixes and quick money making schemes. They often fail. Just like Elizabeth, we often view time and aging as our enemy, but in some cases, like investing, time is very much your friend. 4. Stay true to your authentic self. Elizabeth's transformation to sue a younger and more appealing version of herself is symbolic of how society pressures can force people to abandon their true identity. Staying grounded and authentic is a more sustainable path to success. The focus needs to be on self acceptance and inner confidence rather than relying solely on external validation for success. Real transformation begins with accepting and valuing yourself. So, how do you do this? 1. Daily affirmations. Look in the mirror every morning. Tell yourself, I'm good enough, strong enough, I'm good looking, people like me. Now, I know anyone who's lived through the 90s will instantly think of Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live. And yes, those sketches are hilarious, but this really does work. It's not a joke. Our thoughts shape our reality, and just like the saying, you are what you eat, well, you are what you think. 2. Hypnotherapy. Entering trance and envisioning the life you want and the success you want is very powerful. Rehearse in your mind events the way you want them to play out, asking your boss for a raise, interviewing for that dream job, or starting that business venture. You will find that this also decreases your anxiety when the time comes for these events to take place. Learn self hypnosis or find a hypnotherapist that can help you. 3. Make yourself a powerful playlist. Listen to it before going out or on the way to work or anytime you need a boost of confidence or motivation. I remember when I took my boards, I did this. I put together a playlist. It included The Danger Zone from Top Gun, You're the Best Around from The Karate Kid, The Final Countdown by Europe, and Flagpole Sitta by Harvey Danger, just to name a few. I arrived to that testing center so amped and motivated, I flew through those boards. And 3, take caution with fad treatments. Look, the supplement and fad diet industry is $1 billion business. Remember, their goal is to separate you from your money. Do your research, talk to a healthcare provider before jumping into anything. Review resources like the National Center for Complementary and Integrated Health, an organization that actually tests this stuff and gives you some idea if it works, if it's a waste of money, or if it's dangerous. I'll provide the link below. 2. Take caution to avoid escapism. The movie illustrates how Elizabeth seeks to escape her reality rather than confront it head on. In success, it's critical to acknowledge problems and work through them rather than avoiding or numbing them through temporary solutions. Facing challenges head on will lead to genuine growth and healing. And the number one tip here, um, something that's dear to my heart, let's talk about addiction. Elizabeth's addiction to fame and glamour leads to her using a black market substance obtained off the street. Almost any substance you find off the street is laced with some other substance, and some of these, like fentanyl and carfentanil, are deadly. Consider this: the entrepreneurs making these substances most likely are not doing so in some tight, quality controlled lab. Often their measurements are not all that accurate, and although I truly believe they're not trying to kill anyone, I mean, that would be bad for business, right? But accidents do happen, and hot doses do get on the streets. So please, for those of you out there getting substances from questionable sources, please get it through legal means like a dispensary or enroll in a medicated assisted treatment program. Say what you will about the pharmaceutical industry, but pharmaceutical grade medical treatments do go through a rigorous QA process that takes every effort to make a safe medication that is not mixed with any deadly chemicals. The themes in the film present a cautionary tale about the pursuits of perfection, encouraging a focus on balance, authenticity, and mindful adaptation. Now, let's briefly talk about my thoughts and some trivia of the film. So, I loved the film up until the end. I thought it was brilliant up to that point. I feel it should have ended with Sue's body falling apart on stage. I really just think that the overtop, grotesque, gore filled ending just cheapened it. I think it eloquently proved its point without needing to go there. The writer director cites David Cronenberg, John Carpenter, and Stanley Kubrick as being very influential in the development of the film. This is evident through the film. A few of these Easter eggs include the year 2000 Space Odyssey theme being played when the monster enters the stage. The carpeting in the hall of the studio is very reminiscent of the carpeting in The Shining. And the bloodbath is not only reminiscent of Carrie, but also the flood of blood in the elevator lobby scene from The Shining. The doctor abruptly leaving when Elizabeth begins to cry in the exam room illustrates the stark disparities in mental health care. At the very least, it's warranted a further assessment, not exit stage left by the doc. Someone should have assessed her to see if she was safe to leave. She could be thinking of suicide or simply may be crying out for help. And it's not hard to see she is clearly depressed. This alone should be enough to trigger a referral to mental health services. If Elizabeth's depression and poor self image would have been treated, it's likely she would have never turned to a black market substance for treatment. Interestingly enough, I hear from just about everyone in recovery that I treat almost daily. I hear, if I would have known this medication or treatment existed, I probably would have never started using substances. I find often even healthcare providers are afraid to talk about mental health and to ask the hard question: do you have thoughts of hurting yourself? I know it's scary to have this discussion, and many don't know what to do even if they did find someone who is suicidal. But just by talking to people and taking the time to talk, asking the right questions, we would save hundreds, if not thousands, of lives every year. I feel the film may be taking a satire stab at new injectable treatments for weight loss, such as semaglutide. I hope this is not the case. I think that there are those that have animosity against those drugs and the benefits because they view it as a quick fix, an easy fix. The individuals didn't work for it, or they have no willpower. If it is taking a stab at these products, that is very unfortunate because these products have far more benefits than weight loss. The GLP-1 medications significantly decrease appetite and hunger and manages blood sugar in a way that helps you lose weight and remain a healthy weight. But the benefits don't end there. They significantly decrease cardiovascular risks, such as stroke and heart attacks, and risks associated with type 2 diabetes. Now, everything is not without risks or side effects, so please talk to your healthcare provider if you think you could benefit from one of these products. Well, that's it for today, folks. Please click like and subscribe and share with a friend. Comment below your thoughts. Let me know if there is a film you would like me to review or what you might be struggling with that I could review. Join me next week. Pleasant nightmares. I do hope the bed bugs bite, and be well.